I'm here today with Toni Bubb, professional lover of life and an impact and creative consultant. She works a lot on the personal development side as well as corporate development and kind of bridging that gap between what professional development is and personal development. So kind of that professional development in a healthy way versus just let's move as fast as possible and burn ourselves out. I begged her to come on this because she's got a lot of great opinions and I love how honest she is about things. She does not hold back. So without further ado, Toni, how you doing today?
Hi, Connor. Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing amazing.
One of the big things and the reason I wanted to bring you on was because I've been following you on LinkedIn and I've been seeing all the things you've been posting. And I just found a lot of your opinions to be super fresh and authentic. And it made me think about a lot of different things as well, especially, with everything going on. It's helped me to stay focused. It's helped me to stay clear on, what I'm trying to do and my intention with things. And I think a lot of people are in the same spot where they're taken off your tracks a bit. So what's like one of the biggest messages? What's one of the most important messages that you've been giving to all the clients you coach, on a personal level, on a professional level? What's one of the biggest things that you see is making the biggest impact on people?
Right. Well, obviously it's different for each individual, but I think the main thing is understanding what's best for you. And I think this can actually apply to what's going on currently because we are so used to hearing what's going on and then following what we're told to do. And that is what gets us in the most trouble. Even since a very young age, we're influenced because we want friends to like us. We want our parents to be proud of us. We want our teachers to give us good grades. It's all about pleasing other people. And I think this can get confusing for people because we are supposed to be givers and we are supposed to be lovers, but we cannot truly do that unless we know ourselves and we're okay with who we are versus pretending to be someone in order for someone else to like us. I think this can apply to every area of life, regardless of what's going on in the country or what's going on in your work situation, because that's when you are able to maintain a peace of mind. When you are okay with who you are, then you trust.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, one of the big things that I recently got from you, which I hadn't really seen much anywhere else, was just kind of talking about, which is kind of piggybacking on what you said, just regrounding yourself in terms of, who you actually are and what kind of that person you are, not just in the temporary framework of I've got more time on my hands or a lot of people are helping each other out right now, and I want to do that too, but kind of from like the long-term perspective too.
Right. I think it can get really confusing. I don't know if you're referring to the last post I just did, but I talked about how you have to focus on yourself first and then your inner circle. And then if and only you have the time and energy, then you pour out that cup. Because I think, and I can speak to this from personal experience, I used to get immediate gratification. That's usually what physiologically our bodies are craving, that dopamine, that high, right? Anyone is. That's how social media is programmed. When someone says our name, when someone says they love us, we get this immediate feeling of warmth, basically. That's what everyone's seeking, which is normal. But a lot of the times people get that instant gratification when they're helping others, and they get so used to helping others that they forget about themselves, and then they start to resent people, or they find that they're actually not happy, or that they're focusing so much on the outside. That this is what people actually mean when they say focus on the inside. It means you have to be grounded in yourself. So before I even do a coaching call, or before I literally try to practice everything I preach on a daily basis. And that's the most important thing. You have to give yourself the space and the time before you're able to truly and sincerely help others. It's not coming from a selfish place. It's just truly because you have that energy to give out.
Right. No, it definitely is very true. I mean, there's a lot, on the real estate side too. I'm part of a real estate coaching program. I follow a lot of different people, and it's definitely a huge difference between that discipline of practicing things on a daily basis and just kind of agreeing with things, agreeing with different notions or different ideas. And that's something that I've worked on a lot over the past year. And it's very, very difficult. You definitely fall short a lot, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like a process. It definitely takes a long time to form all those habits and to practice what you preach, as you're saying, and to practice what, ideas you want to incorporate into your life.
Right. I'm glad you brought up real estate because I'm actually pretty familiar with that industry, and
Okay.
I've dated a couple guys that are in it. So
There you
seeing
go.
it from that perspective and being an entrepreneur, dating another person in real estate,
Hmm.
you see from the outside that I feel like, in general, people in the corporate world are like a hamster on a wheel. But I feel like in real estate, if you don't have those systems and processes in place and you're not able to do the most important thing, which we discussed before the call, which is build genuine relationships with people, because it's such a major life decision and it's a huge asset and a financial decision that they're making, that you want to build. My friend's a mortgage consultant, and the reason why she always has good business is because she builds good relationships first and she gets referrals all the time. But
Mhm.
I find in real estate that they're always chasing the money, and they don't put the systems in place and have the processes to free up the time to build those genuine relationships. And also, I think a lot of real estate people, are you familiar with the Enneagram by chance?
I don't think so. No.
No. Okay. So the Enneagram tells you like what kind of personality type you are. So
Okay.
the type 3 is someone that's very into their career, very career focused and driven. I'm a 7, which is like I'm an enthusiast, like the
Mhm.
life of the party kind of crazy person. But anyways, I think a lot of them are Enneagram 3s along with salespeople because they're just solely focused on their career and they identify themselves because of their career.
Mm.
And that will only get you so far. So not only for real estate people, but for anyone in general, there comes to a point where when you're not fulfilled anymore, that's because you're identifying yourself with your career. So if you lose your job, then you feel like you've lost yourself, and that's not a
Yeah.
good place to be.
Yeah. You know
Yeah.
what's interesting too, talking about the unfulfillment part, is I just saw a video, and I swear I think this kid was in high school, and it was this valedictorian. He was basically, long story short, he was talking about how he sacrificed a lot to become the valedictorian, and this was his main
Mm,
thing. And when he was announced valedictorian, he was happy and elated for like 15 seconds, and on the 16th second, he felt nothing. And
right.
um, basically, his message was that whatever you're striving for, whatever you're shooting for, make sure you contextualize that with the 16 seconds and not just thinking about that 15 seconds. Because once it's all done, if there isn't a bigger purpose to it all, and if it's just kind of this flat goal, you're going to hit the 16-second after 15, and you're going
Yep.
to feel terrible, and you're going to like be wondering, like what's going on. And so that was something too on the fulfillment end that I've kind of been thinking about too, because obviously I've got a bunch of goals, and so thinking about those goals in comparison to the 16-second, like when I achieve that, what does the 16-second look like? And am I going to feel the same way? Like, all right, and now what? Like, I don't feel that great. What else is there?
So you just opened up a huge can of awesome worms, by the way. So there's two things I want to address there. Hopefully I'll remember them. The one thing is, so this is what I do with all of my clients. I accidentally developed this why worksheet. So are you familiar with Simon Sinek?
Yes.
Okay. So he has the why video. He talks about the why and why it's so important, right?
Hmm.
So I actually took that to a deeper level. That's actually the first practice I do with all of my clients, even my business clients. Because I say the why is the foundation of who you are. It is the essence of who you are. It will not change regardless of your title, your purpose. Your purpose can change in life, but
Hmm.
your why always stays the same. That is why you get up every morning. And my why is if I can make one person smile or laugh each day, and that could spark something in them to go out and shine their light in the world, then
Hmm.
I've done my why. As you notice, there's no titles, there's no fancy degrees behind
Right.
that. That just really is what lights me up. That's who I am, but then it also helps people be who they are, right?
Hmm.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is you talked about, see, I forgot about it. Oh my like there was two juicy things in there that I wanted to address. Actually, you know what? I forget what it was, but I have something else to talk about. So I'm glad that you brought up goals, because I think this has to do with, I want to talk about flexibility, because, you know, regardless of what your faith is or who you believe in, if you don't have this trust that even when you're not able to meet your goal, that it's aligning you with something else, then it will become very frustrating and it will hold you back. So I think a lot of people are seeing right now that they had all these goals and now they have no control.
Right.
And everyone wants the control. They really do. I mean, I used to everything. I wanted to control everything. I wanted everything to be perfect. You know, even when I dated guys, I was never saying like, oh, I was the kind of girl that wanted to change a guy. I never consciously thought that. But like, oh, if they just change this about themselves, or they just change this about themselves, then they'd be perfect. Well, that's not the goal though. The goal is to accept the imperfection, accept what is coming at you, and that is actually those moments of being uncomfortable are going to be your biggest growing moments. And I think people just want to run away from those moments instead of learn from them. And that's when you create that self-awareness and that mindfulness that can be so powerful if you take the time to develop that practice.
Yeah, and that's also another big thing that I think we definitely connect on, which is meditation. Which I know I don't really know many of them, but I know that there's other ways for you to create that sense of mindfulness. I don't know of any other way that's better than meditation. And I think that's definitely been huge for me too. For the most part, I think the biggest impact of that for me has just been that when you're more mindful, you just are more honest with yourself. And so when you do things, when you react to things, when you think of things, you're able to be more honest of why you're actually doing it and what you actually think and why you actually, you know, acted this way or made this decision, or, you know, why you got annoyed with someone or anything like that. And that's definitely made a big impact. It kind of starts on the personal level for me, and then it kind of goes outwards to my, you know, professional level. So going along with kind of like the mindset aspect, what do you think mindset wise people, you know, and I know obviously you kind of dig so deep with every person that you personalize things, and everything there's no, you know, one cure solution for all or anything like that. But mindset wise, what kind of a mindset do you see as like a very strong mindset right now, and one that you would promote or think is healthy for people to have right now? Because I think that's the biggest thing. I think the biggest thing for people right now is that mindset wise, it's very tough to, as you're saying, accept that there's a bunch of things that are now in front of you that you can't control. And this is affecting everything you planned on doing. Your expectations are completely shattered for whatever you were trying to do, you know, whether it's in real estate or whether you're doing X, Y, or Z. So what kind of like a mindset, besides the fact of accepting, you know, that you don't have full control over things, beyond that, how else do you think people should be handling things, should be attacking things or approaching things right now?
Right. So I think I talked about this a little bit in the beginning. Being careful about what you're hearing. So I was a communications PR major, and one of the first classes I watched and learning about what the news actually was, I was like, I'm never watching the news again. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't watch the news or listen to the news or read it to stay informed. That's ignorant. I'm not promoting that. Listen to it to stay informed so that you are following, you know, what's going on, and you know how you're supposed to be proceeding in your state or wherever you're supposed to be. But what happens is that the media is controlling all of us, whether we like to admit it or not. And they're trying to drive fear into a lot of us. Fear is one of the lowest vibrations, and that fear is what takes over your mind. Now I'm going to give people a little practice they can do to help with themselves, because what it all comes down to is we all have limiting beliefs and blocks. And the key is getting to the root one, the one that's really causing the problem, because we can name tons of, you know, things that we've gone through. People can have trauma And people can also have moments where they aren't getting their needs fulfilled. So I think a lot of times people think, oh, you have to have a major trauma for you to be triggered or to have a limiting block or belief. This is not true. If you have a need that's not being fulfilled, like being loved or being touched in an appropriate way, obviously, but whatever your needs are, if you're not getting that, that can also cause your body and your brain to say, my body's not getting what I need in order to feel love, unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would recommend is, the positive mindset is good, but it's so much more than that. So I want anyone that's listening to think of a memory that caused them the most pain. So what they're going to do is they're going to sit there, they're going to see that story in their heads. And then I want them to rewrite the story. So this is a really easy practice they can do. So they write down the story as if it happened. And then I want them to cross it out, and I actually want them to burn it. And then I want them to write out a new story that has new beliefs around it. Like if that ideal situation happened the opposite way that they remember it, basically. And this is what we call reprogramming the brain. Now, I'm saying all this because when you find yourself going into negative thinking, it's not just as easy as saying, I need to think positively. It's replacing that negative thought with a mantra or a belief that you actually really believe. And so you rewrite that story and you recite that every morning and every night. And then I want you to have a practice that anytime any negative thought comes into your mind, you say, cancel, clear, cancel, clear, cancel, clear, and say, I am so happy and grateful for something that you already have. And that could be your health. That can be a roof over your head. That could be a freaking pencil. We all have something, right? Even if you have nothing, homeless people still have something. And so just being grateful and practicing that every morning. Every morning I wake up, I say, I'm grateful for this bed, the roof over my head, and my friends and family. But we're a lot more fortunate than most people. So just thinking of the basics and being grateful and expressing gratitude for that. That's the mindset you need to have. Don't try convincing yourself just to think positively, because your mind will fight that. You have to have something to replace it.
No, that's 100% true. I mean, positivity is kind of like momentum, right? I mean, eventually it runs thin and dies out. That's definitely something, and that's actually a similar exercise I've done myself as well over the past year. And when you really do think about it, you really do come up with things that you wouldn't have otherwise thought about. When you wonder why you're not doing something, what's something you want to do in your life and why aren't you doing it? And when you kind of goes back to that mindfulness, when you develop that mindfulness a little bit, and you're able to be a little bit more honest and vulnerable with yourself and be like, yeah, well, I'm not doing this because I believe that people don't really want to listen to me, and that's why I don't share my opinions a lot or something like that, then you kind of unlock that. So that's definitely super powerful. So that, I think
I love that.
Those are all really, really important. And I'm going to steal some of those in terms of the mindset right now. What are a few things that are, that you think the most damaging to ourselves in terms of mindset wise? I know we talked a little bit before about, starting from the self. So I guess, that could be kind of a good example, not neglecting yourself. It's great to help others and all, but if you're really neglecting yourself, that can be a big problem. Are there any other big ones that stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, it actually really makes me sad. Like you just talking about that, because I can feel the pain that people have. The people they just don't believe in themselves. They don't think they're good enough. And I don't know why that is. I think it's because maybe they're programmed to see all this perfectionism on the media and social media, that they think that that's how they have to be in order to be good enough. And I think that's, even with all my imperfections, I talk about having shitty periods, I get pimples still, all this stuff. I'm not perfect. And I think it's good to talk about those things and just be honest with yourself about all of your imperfections and love yourself regardless of what those imperfections are. That's what makes you who you are. And stop trying to prove yourself to anyone. Love yourself fully for who you are. There's no perfection. You're never going to reach that, really. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, even when you get to that ideal spot, like people will ask me, like, what are you working on right now? Like, you know what? Like, I'm pretty happy in life, but there's always things that still pop up that they're testing you, you know,
Yeah.
just be open to those. But just love yourself. Like, we love everyone else. We show compassion, we show empathy. You got to show that to yourself. I want to point out something that you said that was really important. You said be vulnerable with yourself. Allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to feel the pain, and don't be embarrassed by it, and talk to yourself. Have a dialogue with yourself. I know that sounds crazy, but I started doing it and I'm like, I don't care what anyone thinks.
Yeah.
It makes me feel better about who I am, and then I can speak confidently about any topic I decide to speak about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, it's something interesting too that I've been recently thinking about as well. I think one problem that I think is kind of rooted in, in terms of when people are like self-limiting themselves. I think one big issue is people, they take arrogance, and then we're brought up in America to think that that's a really bad thing. And arrogance is like a singular term, but I really think that there's there's external arrogance and then there's internal arrogance. And I think the external part is the part that's bad. You don't want to be externally arrogant. No one really appreciates that person. But I think you need to have that internal arrogance in order for you to be setting your sights and to be progressing and to be believing in yourself in the ways that, you'll ultimately, be challenging and fulfilling yourselves in ways that you want to. And I think that that's part of like the self-limiting part, is that people, they think that, oh, if I had the mindset that I wanted to do this or set this goal or do that, that's kind of arrogant of me. Like I just started doing this, or I don't know much about that. I'm not the best in this, I'm not the cutest or whatever.
Right.
And they think, well, I can't, it'd be arrogant of me to think that. But I think if you don't have that internal arrogance, I don't know how you're really going to grow.
I believe it. Oh, I wonder, I forget who it is. There's someone that spoke about this. Seth Goodwin, possibly him, and it could have been someone else. But he talked about, it's called the humble narcissist.
I like that.
So it's kind of referring to what
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah.
You have to have that confidence in yourself. It's all about me, right?
Mhm.
But then be humble at the same time. And
Mhm.
you can tell the difference. Like if you watch leaders, I have nothing against Tony Robbins, by the way. I've gone to his stuff, and I use some of he actually has a really good practice for building that internal arrogance or confidence, whatever you want to call it. But if you look at his demeanor, and then you look at someone like Vishen, I can't say his last name. I'm very bad with names, but he's the founder of Mind Valley.
Okay.
If you look at people like him or Tom Below, obviously bad with names. He talks about, anyways, if you look at their demeanors as leaders, they're very different. Whereas Vishen and these other, I call them the men of the future. And it's not just that it has to be men, but I'm just giving those examples. They have this calmness about them, this humbleness about them but is still so strong. It's because it's grounded in this self-assurance of who they are and this new way of being a leader versus the Tony Robbins style, which is more, I would say, testosterone driven, like aggressive. You have to work your ass off and kill yourself to be successful. I'm just trying to give two extreme examples there.
Right.
But I think like what you're saying is so important because people, I think that's an excuse also.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excuse to procrastinate from them not taking action. And that's probably the second major problem is no one takes action because they're too afraid of what other people are going to think or that they're going to fail. And so then they don't take the action at all.
Mm-hmm. No, I do really like that. And I think that is true. I think there's a big difference between the two. Obviously, most people are talking about the coronavirus now, and really no one knows what the timeline is going to be.
Yeah.
But just based on the circumstance or context that people are going to be inside and they're restricted in terms of what they can do. So just based on that context, not talking about the virus really, but just based on the context that people are going to be restricted and inside for, let's say, another month or another 2 months or whatever it is. What's like the key for you coming out better than that? And then what's also like the biggest pitfall for you coming out worse after that? Because I think that's a huge thing for people.
Right. I mean, this is either, like you kind of said it, I think there's two options here. You either look at this as an opportunity for growth, or you allow yourself to keep sinking. And it's really your choice. And kind of like I've been posting about recently, it's like now all of your problems are under one roof. So if you weren't getting along with your spouse, your significant other, your children are acting up, you hate your job, that's now all magnified, looking you in the face right now.
Yeah.
Right. And I think this needed to happen. I think this is going to be, and I think that most people will not be able to get out of this and say, they're like, either going to work on it, or they're going to get so frustrated, they're going to say, I can't do this. And see, that's where the personal development comes into play. If you're smart, you'll take this time to read more, watch some documentaries, do some coaching. See, everyone's saying don't spend money and all that stuff. No, this is the best time to invest in yourself, get yourself to where you want to be, and then see if you can build those better relationships. I still have coaching clients. They're like, I was like, oh, do you want to take a month off? They're like, no. They're like, I want to keep learning and growing through this, you know? And I'm like, okay, great. So I think this is an opportunity. And to be honest, and this is going to sound maybe bitchy or cruel, but for those people that choose to sink, we cannot be responsible for them. I used to think that because we took the time to do all that we have to help as many people as possible. The people that want the help and the guidance, and when I say help, I mean more like guidance, was like what you're doing. You're providing guidance and you're providing tools and resources. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they have to choose to take the action. So I've taken that responsibility off my shoulders. Those people that unfortunately are going to pass away or lose loved ones or get depressed, I can't hold all of that. I'm not Jesus Christ. You know, I'm not. And we're all human. And we, like I said, you have to do the best for you, your inner circle, and then you can pour out. So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. There's no really like pretty way to put it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's true. I mean, I think it's, I think they're obviously definitely not mutually exclusive, but I think that if you're not taking the time to better yourself, if you're not doing that first, then you're not really putting yourself in a good position to better others. And if you're only bettering others and not yourself, then you're just kind of setting yourself up for some ticking time bomb event, whether it's, regretting stuff or just feeling bad about your career or just, not being in a good position in, let's say, a year or 2 years. But I definitely agree. This is, as far as everything going on, for me, it's just been a choice. That's been really the main thing. Is this going to be an opportunity for me, my clients, and for me to help other people? Because now more than ever, people need good information. I need good help. And with everyone home, there's so much bad information out there too. So it's definitely an opportunity to help more people.
I had someone reach out to me yesterday on LinkedIn, and he said to me, because I wrote a post about learn to float alone or something like that. And he goes, is it really okay to take time for myself? Isn't that selfish, for my family right now? And I said, no, regardless of what's going on right now or not, you always have to take time. And some personalities need more time alone. I need more time alone. I tell my boyfriend that, like, I just need more alone time, So that's, again, owning who you are, being comfortable with that, and then learning to communicate that and not feeling bad for who you are and what your needs are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you brought up another really good point I wanted to say real quick. Be careful of the content you're consuming and limit that and be mindful. Take intentional action towards what you choose to read, and don't just read everything, because then the mind gets overwhelmed and then you won't take action.
Yeah.
An overwhelmed mind, a confused mind won't take action.
100%, 100%. I mean, I think that you could be the most mindful person in the world. You could be the Dalai Lama, but I bet if the Dalai Lama watched the news every single day, I think he'd probably go crazy too. So
Right. Yeah.
that's definitely true. Anyway, Toni, so if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, best way is on LinkedIn. So you can find me. It's Toni and then Bubb, Bubb, and or they can go to my website. It's tonibubb.com, and they can just schedule a discovery call. I do like a free 30-minute discovery call to explain my process,
Right.
and I do transformational coaching, and then I also do impact and creative consulting for wellness brands.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I appreciate you giving into my incessant demand to do this video call. I know we just wanted to let it flow, and I think that you did give a lot of great insights, not only in terms of well beyond, not just in the context of coronavirus, but in context of your next year and in terms of your next 5 years, how to set yourself up to better attack, that yourself and progress really well. But then also in the context of this, because it is rattling a lot of people like it's rattled me in the beginning. How can you set yourself up to be better after this? And, how you can also be worse if you don't, be mindful of things. So I think that's all super important. Anyway, Toni, it was a pleasure. Thank you for your time. I know you've got to go, but again, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Connor. You're awesome.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.